This week's case is a disturbing one. A young woman's parents let her waste away, literally, on a living room couch for over 12 years without getting her help. So, let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is Brandy and it's time for a true crime case or mystery video with one or more of my fabulous felines. I do have some behind me. Darth Kittius was sitting over here and then she took off right before I started recording because she is a woman with things to do, okay? She will also be turning a year old in July and she is our smallest cat. She never really grew, so she's still cute and looks like a kitten, but she's ornery as all get out. I will try to get a couple video clips together and give you an update on her because I know you guys ask about her a lot as you were on the journey with me when I rescued her. So if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, my feline friends, and a big shout out to my feline fans who help support this channel. So thank you so much for your patience with me this last month or so. For those that are new here, YouTube is not my full-time job. I am not a full-time YouTuber. I do this out of fun. My full-time job is a program manager for a statewide management information system in Iowa. We have 99 counties in Iowa and 98 counties have been using the system that I manage since 2010. And then the 99th county, which is one of the biggest counties in Iowa, had approached us and said, hey, we'd like to use your system as well. So it has been a 2-year project and it's now coming to an end as they will start using the system as of July 1st. The project will be officially done. And so this last month is full of, training and data migration and getting data in and basically just lots of late nights. But it'll all be worth it because we can finally say that every single county in Iowa is now using this system and that feels good. So again, thank you for your patience. I do enjoy doing these videos and interacting with my viewers. So let's talk about Lacey Fletcher. I don't usually cover cases that are this recent because not all of the information is out there. We don't have final convictions, and it usually leaves people with, more questions than answers. However, this case, when I read it, it was so shocking. I can't get it out of my head. So I want to present it and I want to discuss it with you guys because right now it is living in my head rent-free and I can't get it out. This case just happened in January 2022. So I'll report on what information that I can find that's out there, and then we'll have to follow it together as it develops. So Lacey Fletcher was born November 25th, 1985 to Clay and Sheila Fletcher. Now, Clay and Sheila lived most of their lives in Slaughter, Louisiana, which is a pretty small town, but they were well known in the community. Sheila was the town alderman, which is an elected position, and basically their main job is to represent the community during like city council meetings and stuff like that. Clay, he worked for the Baton Rouge Civil War Roundtable, which is a mission to educate and foster an appreciation for the sacrifices from all sides of the Civil War. So according to a neighbor who had lived across the street from the Fletchers since Lacey was a, little child, Lacey was a normal, fun kid growing up and seemed to have, lots of friends. She was on the volleyball team at her school and participated in other various activities. However, around the age of 14, Lacey seemed to start alienating herself. She was becoming more isolated. She started staying in the house more. She was not really doing stuff outside. She wasn't really hanging out with her friends. She just seemed to want to be alone all the time. Now, the last time that the neighbor stated that he actually saw Lacey with his own eyes, excuse me, Comey, was about 15 years ago in 2012-ish. when Lacey would have been about 21 years old. He stated that when he saw her, she looked normal, and what she was doing is she was kind of in the road, and she was exercising with some of those, small hand weights. That's the last time he had saw her, and he never saw her again after that. But, he figured she was at that age that maybe she moved away, maybe she went to college, maybe she got married, and she was just starting her own life. So it wasn't unusual that he didn't see her anymore. Now, the neighbor said that about 5 years ago in 2017, 5 years ago in 2017, that he had talked to Clay, Lacey's dad, and just was like, hey, I haven't seen Lacey around in a while. What's she up to? Thinking again that she moved away, started her own life. And Clay apparently responded that, Lacey still lived at home and she's fine, and then kind of quickly changed the subject. So the neighbor was obviously surprised to hear this, and because he hadn't seen Lacey in years, and if she still lived at the house, why hasn't he ever seen her? So the big question is where was Lacey? And if she was still living in the house, why hadn't anyone seen her for the last several years? Well, that question was answered when Lacey was now 36 years old. Authorities arrived at the Fletcher's house as Sheila had called the authorities because somebody in the house was not breathing, and it was Lacey. When authorities arrived on the scene, what they found was horrible. So I'm going to just say content warning because this gets bad, you guys. So the EMTs arrived at the house, and the first thing they stated is when they walked through the door was there was this horrific smell. They said it was kind of like a mixture of, that if you've ever smelt like a decaying animal or even a human decaying, that smell never leaves you. And they said that it was a smell of that decay mixed with human waste and rot. On the living room couch was Lacey's body, partially naked, sitting upright on the couch, but she was almost looks like she was sitting down in the hole in the cushion, almost up to her shoulders. So instead of just sitting on a couch, she's way down in this hole in this cushion, which was odd. Lacey's body was almost skeletal, she was way skinnier than she should have been for a girl her age and size, and she was covered head to toe in urine and feces. She even had feces in her hair and in her ears. She had it continues to get worse, guys, so bear with me. So she even had maggots in her hair that was feeding off of the feces that was caked in her hair. So that's just to give you an idea of how bad it was. There were, besides the maggots, there were live bugs crawling all over that part of the couch and around the couch and on Lacey, and there was rodent feces kind of around the couch, and Lacey's body actually had bug bites all over her body as well. When they picked up Lacey's body from the couch, that's when they saw the worst of it. Lacey, when they came in, Lacey appeared to be sitting in a hole in the cushion, and because she actually was, but the hole was formed or created over time by Lacey's bodily functions eating away at the cushion and the structure of the couch, because allegedly Lacey was just relieving herself right there on the couch. So the couch had rotted away underneath her. When they picked Lacey up, her underneath her buttocks and the back of her legs, her skin was rotting away as well. The skin on her buttocks had rotted away so much that bone was showing, and it looked like that she just literally was melting into the couch, and that when they picked her up, she was pretty much fused. Her skin was fused to the cushion, so it she had been there for some time. Now, besides the under part of her, she had several bed sores, around and on her body. And some of the bed sores were so bad that they went clear down to the bone as well. So Lacey only weighed 96 pounds when they took her in for an autopsy. So, along with kind of being stuck on the couch, she had not been eating regularly either. So the coroner who was on the scene, he estimates that Lacey had sat on that couch and really never moved for the last 12 years of her life. And that when Lacey's body was removed and then they were able to pull the couch away from the wall, it was discovered that the floor underneath the couch had started buckling because of the bodily fluids and the feces and everything that just pooled underneath the couch and through the cushions. The coroner, in his years of experience, he said that he was very upset by this scene and that he stated, you can't say that Lacey was not in pain the way her sores were, the way, she was, and that the case bothered him so much that he couldn't eat and he cried for a week. It just bothered him that much. So Lacey's official cause of death was the result of severe medical neglect, obviously, which led to chronic malnutrition, acute starvation, immobility, acute ulcer formation, osteomyelitis, which is like a bone infection, which then led to sepsis and ultimately ended her life. And on top of all that, she also tested positive for COVID, but they're unsure of how she, was exposed to that because she never left the house. So now the coroner put her time of death as 3:07 a.m. on January 3rd, 2022. But stated that it is possible she could have died up to 24 hours prior to that because it was really hard to determine due to the state of her body when she was alive. There was just so much damage. Oddly enough, you'd think coming into a scene like this that, the rest of the house was probably like a hoarding situation or just in terrible condition, but you'd be wrong. The rest of the house was actually in pristine condition, clean, normal. There was a portable toilet next to the couch where Lacey was. And on the right end of the couch, the opposite end of where Lacey was sitting, was a fresh, clean, folded pile of clothes. I'm guessing they were for Lacey, but I'm not sure. It was like the Fletchers cleaned everything but their daughter. So what would cause a seemingly normal child and teenager to end up like this at 36 years old? Now, what we know at this time and what's out there is that around 9th grade, so she would have been 13, 14-ish, Lacey began alienating herself from her friends and started having some really bad anxiety. So eventually her parents had pulled her out of school and started homeschooling her. In the early 2000s, Lacey was continuing to have anxiety issues, and so she started seeing a psychiatrist. That psychiatrist diagnosed Lacey with antisocial disorder, anxiety, and autism. So the Fletchers stated that Lacey started not wanting to leave the house at all, and specifically sitting on the couch and refusing to get up without some constant prompting. So they would tell her to get up, she'd say no, and it just took a lot of effort to get her to get off the couch. So they contacted the psychiatrist and told him this and was just we're concerned. So the psychiatrist told the Fletchers, yeah, obviously this isn't normal. So what you need to do is you need to bring Lacey in to see a doctor or a specialist, or at least to me so I can get her help. But for whatever reason, the Fletchers never followed through with this, and the psychiatrist didn't really hear from them, again, from what I could find. The last time Lacey saw an actual medical doctor was when she was 16 years old. So when she started this behavior, they didn't take her to see anybody. So Lacey's parents stated that one day, Lacey just sat down on the couch and refused to move. So they started bringing her meals to the couch, and they set up a portable toilet next to the couch, but she would never use the portable toilet. She would just relieve herself where she sat. Apparently, her parents considered at one point like committing her to a facility, which, yeah, probably a good idea. But Lacey told them that she didn't want to leave. We know this by now, right? Like, duh, she's going to say that. They just dropped the matter and never apparently brought it up again. Sheila, Lacey's mom, stated that she cleaned Lacey's wounds regularly and that Lacey was able to communicate with them and never complained about her sores or being in pain. Now, the Fletchers did state that they were the primary and only caregivers for Lacey, and there were no like aides, nurses, doctors that came to the house to help. No shit, really? So next to the couch where Lacey was sitting was a table that had cleaning wipes, nasal spray, talcum powder, and like lotion bottles. Sheila was supposedly cleaning Lacey's wounds. So here's my issue with all this, okay? So supposedly Sheila was cleaning her daughter's sores and wounds or whatever she was getting from not moving from this couch. But she never physically moved her from that particular couch cushion to another area. So even after like the insects and started coming and everything, you never thought to actually physically move her to another area. I'm not a medical professional, obviously, and this is just my opinion, but if you are actually cleaning wounds and, you know, trying to help the healing process, and then you put them back in a filthy, rotted away, insect-ridden, feces, urine seat hole, let's be honest, a hole, you're not helping anything. You just undid the cleaning of the wound and now it's messy again. Like, sorry, I have a huge problem with this. And if you were really cleaning her like you said, how did the skin get fused to the couch? I mean, were you not turning her over? Were you not getting underneath? Were you just cleaning what you could see and you just ignored the rest? I mean, this is how I'm seeing things based on the information we have. Okay, so again, my opinion, we don't have all the information, but just from the information we have is, okay, you say you were doing it, but it appears to me that maybe you weren't or you were half-assing it. Okay, moving on. Now, some media is reporting that Lacey suffered from what's called locked-in syndrome. Now, locked-in syndrome is a neurological disorder where someone can have paralysis of like their voluntary muscles, so their arms, legs, anything that is a voluntary muscle, and they can only really control their eyes, like up and down, back and forth. People with this disorder, they're not mentally challenged or anything like that. They can think, they have reason, they have all the cognitive abilities. They just can't move and they usually don't speak. There's just some traumatic brain injury or something that's blocking some, inceptors in the brain. Now, there is no known cure for locked-in syndrome, but there are treatments and therapies. And usually people with this disorder, they're placed in facilities that have the expertise to deal with stuff like this. Now, the problem with this theory of Lacey suffering from locked-in syndrome is that the coroner himself had denied that Lacey suffered from this. And basically, he stated that when she was found, it appeared that she had crossed her legs underneath her while she was sitting in this cushion hole, and that could have been in order to get more comfortable, or she did it in a what he calls a bid to survive. That sometimes when if you're ever in pain or you think you're dying or something, usually you kind of pull into yourself because you're kind of giving yourself that comfort. So that was his theory anyway, is that she had crossed her legs. So that kind of throws out the idea that She couldn't move her legs. Sheila had also reported to authorities that Lacey began eating like less on her own. You know, that like they didn't have a feeding tube or anything like that. Like they would bring her meals, like sandwiches and stuff like that. And that on the night before she died, Lacey had ate half a sandwich and some Cheetos. So again, does that sound like a paralyzed person to you? And both Sheila and Clay had full-time jobs. So they were gone all day at their jobs during the week. And they already admitted that they were the primary caregivers and there was nobody else. So if Lacey was truly paralyzed and could not move and they would leave for their jobs, like that just makes everything sound worse. So this theory of Lacey having like locked-in syndrome is being highly debated right now because the evidence isn't showing that that was the case. Now, Lacey's parents also had reported not only were they able to communicate with Lacey, but they were adamant that Lacey was of sound mind and could make her own types of decisions. Okay, if my husband decided to plant his ass on the couch and refuse to get up, even to go to the bathroom, there's obviously something going on where he's not in his right sound mind. I mean, yes, he's an adult and he can make a decision to start doing this, but that's not normal. So something is going on here. Even if he's doing it, let's say we get in a fight and he's doing it out of spite, it's not going to happen for 12 years. So let's be real about this, right? Plus, Lacey weighed 96 pounds when she was found, right? So even before she got to 96 pounds, she was probably vastly underweight. She could have just been physically picked up and moved. And this is where I'm having the problem of, okay, so she refused. She didn't want to get up. She wanted, okay, well, by this time, you could have picked her up and physically moved her to a clean area and got rid of the couch. Yeah, she'll probably, if there was some unhealthy attachment to this couch or whatever, we don't really know what was going on yet, but get rid of the couch. Yeah, she's probably going to freak out and get mad, but at least she's not sitting in her own filth with insects and maggots and feces. Like, I'm sorry, it just blows my mind that you wouldn't even think to move her, physically move her, whether she's going to get mad or not. I mean, what can she honestly do? Yell and scream? You can't handle that? You can't handle that for the life of your child. Again, my opinion. Moving on. So Sheila stated that the night Lacey died, after she ate her half sandwich and Cheetos, that Sheila sat down in a chair in the living room. That was about 10 p.m. on January 2nd. And she stated that Lacey was still alive at that time. And when Sheila then fell asleep. So when Sheila woke up in the morning, that's when she discovered that Lacey had passed sometime in the night, and then she called the police. Like in my head, I'm imagining at this point that, you know, the Fletchers became nose blind to the smell, right? So, you know, remember, this was in their living room. It wasn't like some back bedroom that they could just close off from the rest of the house. This is happening in their living room. So meaning that they never had visitors in at least 12 years either. So they got to be nose blind to this point, right? That they just smelled that smell so long that they just don't smell it anymore. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. So she called the police. Authorities arrived. And as authorities kind of worked the scene, Sheila and Clay just kind of stood in the kitchen. And they would offer no explanation for anything at that time. So Clay and Sheila weren't immediately arrested the day the authorities were there discovering the scene and taking care of Lacey's body. But authorities wanted to wait for the autopsy results and the exact cause of death. So when the coroner put out the exact cause of death and then ruled it a homicide, that's when things started happening. In May of 2022, the district attorney showed a grand jury the many disturbing photographs of the scene, the house, of Lacey's body, and wanted to, press charges on the parents. So besides the image of the couch, there were no other pictures that were released to the public because authorities felt that they were just way too disturbing. Like, the couch is bad enough, let's be honest, right? Some jurors who looked through the photos, they gasped in horror. Others just stared in disbelief. Nobody knew what to say. They even had a medical team on standby just in case the jurors needed some treatment after looking at these horrifying photographs. So the jury agreed to press charges on the Lacey's parents, and they were going for second-degree murder of Lacey. So the Fletchers were arrested in the end of May 2022, and they were held on a $300,000 bond each on each one of them. Now, Sheila was able to post her bond, and so she walked out of jail the next morning. Clay had to spend an additional night in jail while Sheila worked to gain more resources and money to post his bond, but he then walked out a day after Sheila did, so they're both out on bond, and they're both back staying in the house where Lacey passed away. Now, the couple is not speaking to the media, but they did hire a lawyer, and the lawyer issued a statement that the Fletchers did not want to relive the pain of losing their daughter through the media, and that they'd been through a lot in the last couple, like a lot of heartache in the last couple of years, and that anyone who has lost a child knows what it's like. Okay, I've never lost a child. But what makes me mad about that statement of anyone who lost a child knows what it's like is the whole thing here is you didn't have to lose Lacey. They didn't have to lose Lacey. They could have reached out for help and got her proper treatment. I'll even give them the benefit of the doubt here and just say that you thought you could handle it. And obviously it got overwhelming. And by the time it was overwhelming, she was in such a condition that you were embarrassed. So you didn't want anybody to see that. I'll even give you that benefit of the doubt. That happens. That's actually pretty freaking normal. But wouldn't you rather have her alive than dead? And let's say you did call for help even though you were embarrassed about her condition and she was maybe taken to a facility and whatever, but because of her condition, charges were pressed on you anyway. Those charges would probably be neglect and not murder, right? So would you rather have neglect charges or murder charges, and would you rather have your daughter alive or dead? So the district attorney stated that he did believe that the Fletchers wanted Lacey to die because they were just tired of being the caregiver for her. And I see where he's reaching that conclusion based on my previous questions and what we know at this time. Again, I'm basing my opinion on what we know right now. Now, if the Fletchers are convicted of second-degree murder, they are looking at a potential life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, it is possible that they can be convicted of a lesser charge like manslaughter or neglect of somebody in your care, but we'll just have to wait and see because this case is still ongoing. Unfortunately, because the Fletchers aren't talking, we do not know their mindset. We don't know their thought processes. Maybe they suffer on the spectrum of autism. We don't know. But we'll have to just find out as this case progresses. So my last comment here is Slaughter, Illinois is a small town of less than 1,000 people. It's around 850 people or something like that. And if you ever lived in a small town, and I have myself, it's not unusual that, everybody and their dog knows everybody's business, right? Well, Clay and Sheila were well known in the community because of their jobs and because they were, church members and they were church leaders in the community and, they participated in all that community stuff. But what I found interesting is that when this story broke, there was a lot of people in town that knew the Fletchers that had no idea that they had a daughter. This included neighbors that maybe moved in after Lacey was, housebound. Church members didn't know. And even Clay's own co-workers had no idea that he had a daughter until this story broke. So again, I just found that interesting. Now, Sheila had resigned from her alderman position in February of 2022, a month after Lacey had passed away. The Fletchers are due back in court in July. And at the time of this recording, there's no plea agreements on the table or anything. So I'll try to keep everyone updated as this case progresses. I'm not going to start doing really fresh cases like this. It's just this one was living in my head and I had to get it out because I want to discuss it with you guys. I want to know, what do you think? Please tell me in the comments down below. Are you as mind blown as I am about this? Like, right? Anyway, but if you'd like to become a feline friend, just hit that subscribe button. Give me a like if you like this content. And if you would like to become a feline fan, please hit the join button for special perks. Thank you, everyone. And I will be back next time for another true crime case or mystery video. Hopefully it'll be on time next time. And now hopefully I can get more videos out as well on more on the cats and everything, my fabulous felines. So thank you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.